Hi everybody, welcome to L&L Soul Sisters. This is your host, Lasha Royenko. Well, it's actually Lisa Margaret Lena Royenko. However, when I was 18 and I moved out to Alberta, I always wanted to go by my Ukrainian name, which I believe is pronounced Lesya. So I just thought Lasha was the easiest way. And just a side note, before I tell you what I'm talking about, just hang in there, please, before I forget to tell this story, because I always go on unscripted. My shorts are unscripted. It's all impromptu. And my mother has Gucci on, and the song The Most Wonderful Time of the Year is playing. I know the scenes of this movie back and forward like the individual DNA of my hand. At any rate, I was going to tell you a funny story, but I digress. Moving forward, today I want to talk about Eugenie, the anorexic YouTuber that has 3.5 million followers, 2.5 million followers. I prefer to people who join this channel, we call you souls. My sister souls, soul sisters and soul brothers are welcome. And I was anorexic, and I wasn't going to disclose this. I was actually going to wear, if you go back on one of my videos, I'm wearing a mask, like a charade mask that they wore in Eyes Wide Shut. But let me tell you, there's truth to Eyes Wide Shut. As we all now know with watching JE about GM and... Okay, let me talk about Eugenie first. Then I'm going to talk about Harry and Andrew. And then I'm going to talk about why I started this channel and the content that is going to be coming up. Eugenie, I do not know. I am not splicing and slicing and putting pictures of her up and this and that. I won't do it. Where do I begin with my journey of that disease? We now know it can be partly genetic. It's a genetic mutation, and it's an OCD type anxiety. I was so lucky in a way that I got over it. Am I still fully over it though? Well, let's talk about that. I don't need... Anybody who is watching this already knows who Eugenie is. So what's the point of me splicing and slicing? Yeah, that'll get me more views because, yeah, people want to look at gore. If that's why you're signed up for that channel, I have no understanding of why. I don't know how she can talk, first of all. She probably weighs about 60 pounds. My lowest was 78, and in the anorexic world, which I have and never had a part of, because this happened to me. I was born in 70s, and so this happened to me when it started around 11 years old. And it was my grade 8 graduation. And I desperately wanted a certain family member to be there, but they didn't come. So I came from a quote-unquote broken home. But what's so sad about broken homes nowadays, and it does have to do with Eugenie, this is a generalized statement. Everybody knows that people who come from broken homes, if you get stuck in a certain amount of time, for instance, and you don't see relatives for a certain amount of time, it's very, very difficult to heal those bridges again. But the one thing that I'll never understand is I don't have any animosity about the past anymore. Oh, I am still not going to stop about the systemic issue of why I'm doing this. But to get attention to what I need to bring attention to, I do need to talk about relevant influencers, relative YouTubers, relative situations in life, because it's relevant to all of us, whether we like it or not. We're all connected. That's the one thing I'll agree with about Russell Brand. But that's a whole other podcast. If you want my take on that, you can find me. I'm not going on and on again about subscribing and liking and I do it for everybody. Well, not everybody's me. And I don't like things that I literally don't like. But, when you see somebody putting up an effort and they're starting a channel, I always love to support people. But Eugenie, I was anorexic, and I'll show you one picture. I found one picture that I'll show you, and that's it. Now, as you can see, when you look at that picture, tell me what you see. I was 13 there, and I said it started at 11. And at 11 years old, I looked like I was 18. When I was 11, before I got sick, I kind of looked like this. I matured very, very, very quickly. And I remember an incident in the car with a certain person. And they picked me up after school, which was a very rare occurrence. And they pinched a certain part of a little girl that shouldn't be pinched. But it wasn't in a perverted way. It was in a lack of understanding of how an adult treats a child. So I don't blame him because that's probably the way he was treated. So as you can see, I've got baggy clothes on. I didn't want my picture taken. My hair was falling out. I had fur growing on my face. And my mother had to go to little girls' stores to buy clothes for me, and it ripped my mother apart. Those are the only pictures that I'm going to show you. My mother took me from therapist to therapist to therapist. Somebody who was estranged from my life tried to come back into my life, but it was too painful. And then, of course, it's this back and forth about whose fault it is. And I didn't even realize it till this age, which is driving my family crazy because I only remember my pieces. And in order for me to fully put together my past, I need other people that grew up with me say, well, it could be this, it was that. Because what you think when you're from a divorced family is that it's your fault. And I remember my mother took me to a psychiatrist, and I remember her asking me these questions and getting me to write color and stuff. And I did not realize what a disassociated mechanism I used. When I say disassociated, nothing bothered me. Except when I didn't get my way and I would have a temper tantrum. I've done that as an adult. Because what anorexia does, when you think about it, 11 years old to almost 17, my aunt and my uncle and my mother, and from the love of certain members of the other side of my family, nourished me a little bit back to life. But my mother took me to group meetings, individual meetings. Back then in Victoria, there was this, it was the Monteau Anorexic Clinic, and you don't hear about it a lot anymore, but it is like you're possessed by the demon. It's like being in hell. And the only way I can explain it is this, because I've gone through this. When I was injured by that surgeon and he didn't keep his oath and he maintained silence, which is as deadly as not saying anything. Silent but deadly. And his complacency, and there's a difference between making an error and keeping an oath. I mean, I'll tell you the macro level of the issue with the doctor, but what I'm trying to explain is pain medication is absolutely addictive. I don't care what anybody says. I have no shame about it at all anymore. Oh my gosh. I used to be humiliated about it. And I do remember in 2012, the Sackler family, if anybody watched the judicial hearing, if anybody's been affected by anorexia, bulimia, systemic issues, if you've been in a wheelchair before, if you've had a medical malpractice before, please contact me. And I'm putting myself way out there because I have nothing to lose. I'm 52 in my 53rd year, and I want to do something about the legislation in Canada wherein instead of having to fight with courts and sue doctors, which you can never win anyway, because the statutory of limitations is 2 years, and I wanted to give this surgeon the benefit of the doubt. Now, I have videos all over L&L Soul Sisters, which is 2 channels, which I have no idea why, because of the difference between LISA and LIISA. And there's 203 souls. Thank God you, and every person that I could figure out joined. I know how to do that. At the end of the week, you go to analytics, but I don't know how to put the 2 channels together. And then the other channel is where I do the lives. And I did a really good one on Russell Brand, and 33 people subscribed right away. That was kind of cool. And I hate it when people don't comment. I actually despise that. I despise it. Why do I despise it? Probably because I do too much of it. And I love communicating with all kinds of different people, which leads me to the point of my podcast. This isn't going to be just me flipping my legs around, dancing and singing. I did that originally because I couldn't believe that I was still able to do these things after a year in a wheelchair. Now, I don't have footage from that time. I didn't want footage of me. I never became this outgoing until I was able to walk again. When I was 48, I was able to take my first step in a year. Oh, and I'm not complaining about anything. Like, if anything, it's just made me stronger to fight for the right thing. And if you believe that a doctor not keeping his oath, staying silent, 5 months later I find out my leg is as broken as the day that it was. My leg was straight out because the hardware was underneath the kneecaps, and the pins were sticking out of my knee, but they were more like nails and they weren't even capped. The more bone damage it did to my knees, and he missed my knee joint by 1 millimeter. So when I put up dancing and singing, those are the things that I did to try to heal. And no matter how much pain I'm in, no matter what, I keep going. And you know, sometimes it's easier to put this out on camera than talk to anybody, because my friend who's 81 and lived so much longer than me has said people don't like talking about feelings. But I used to be that way. Oh, I used to get offended if somebody asked me about my father because I couldn't even say it. And I would just segue through. But, you know, people aren't stupid. I would have to hide the tears in my eyes. I never wanted not to be a part of his life. And I'm on a tangent, but the anorexia thing, it stems from so much, okay? And I got through this without therapy, without anything. I had to have a piece of my Miro taken out. I dislocated my SI joint. That's why my right leg can go up so high, which is my bad leg, but you don't have to bend your knee when you put it up. And people go, how do you do that? Injuries, you know, it wasn't from hard work. Well, it was. I used to be a ballet dancer when my mother could afford it. And that was another thing that triggered me, was I remember a ballet teacher said to me, oh, you have a little bit of a pot. I was in grade 7. When I look at some of the things that happened in the 70s, it's child abuse. I remember a teacher, because I was very mature, a boy sent me a note, and it said, will you let me, you know, you? And I didn't know what that meant. And I said, I don't know, maybe. And then the teacher brought me, the male teacher, I always called him Dr. Paulington, Mr. Paulington. I think that was his name, or I don't remember. Something like that. He took me to the back of the room and started harassing me about how many boys I met in the back. And I think that destroyed my ability to embrace my sexuality, because very shortly thereafter, plus with issues, you know, in the past, that led me to, where's that anorexic picture? Okay, I'm not meant to find it. But this was my dad, and it wasn't his fault, and I loved him. You know, and I didn't go to any therapy. I got through this with my mom, and one day after the blood transfusion, I just said, take me to Harvey's and I need to eat. And then I gained weight and just kind of went on. And then I transferred that anorexic thing, which subconsciously, that's why I say I disassociate. That's how I get through things. I just pretend they don't happen, or it doesn't matter. I remember one of my friends saying, you're not responding to what's going on. Like, aren't you upset? I said, well, that's the way they are. I mean, what are you supposed to do? You know. But this was me kitty cat too. And me Sophie's up north. But I'm saying I got through it. I became a regional supervisor at Jenny Craig. I worked 2 jobs from 20 to 27, 28 between visiting homemakers and Jenny Craig. I was so dedicated to helping people, and I never wanted to help anorexic girls, because when I would see them, my bones would physically start aching, which leads me to the point of the addiction with the pain medication. If you've ever had addiction issues and you've gone through withdrawal and you're shivering and you're freezing, that's what anorexia feels like every day. And I often wondered, why would I punish myself? And that's the way in which I would punish myself, like a binge and purge. But I never threw up when I was anorexic. I didn't do any of that. I just didn't eat. And then I would allow myself to eat on one day, you know, and yeah, it's a horrible disease. I remember one of my friends got it, and she actually blamed me, that I'm the one that gave her the ideas. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she doesn't talk to me anymore. I've really limited people that I talk to, and sometimes you reach out to the wrong people that reject you. And when you're an anorexic, being rejected is the worst thing that can happen. And as far as Eugenie, I don't know what the answer to that is, because I think that demonetizing would crush her, could lead her into a relapse. I also understand the mother could possibly be trying to help her in her way, or is she enabling? I don't know. But what I want you all to know is I don't want this to be about me. My friend Lisa was supposed to join me. It hasn't happened. I don't have a co-host. And I'm very interested, like I'm a nobody from nowhere, but you have to start somewhere. I put myself out there, it's the truth. And if you don't believe me, you can go vet me all you want. I mean, if you ask me who I am, I bet you if you asked other people who I was, the common theme would be she's a very nice person, but I don't know what else they would say. You don't know what people's perceptions are you unless you ask. You can't fit in a piece of time on your own memory. And that's why when people have such conviction about memories, you do have to back it up with proof. And that's why taking a diary every day, doing a to-do list. But what I'm trying to say is my life fell apart when I was about 38 years old, reunited with certain people that I hadn't seen for years. Somebody saying, I knew that Lisa would come back to us, but I thought, but I never left. I was always there. You know what it's like to be a little girl and get hung up on by the very people that are supposed to be protecting you? It makes for a confusing time. And then when I got into relationships, I believe now, in looking back, I went for men that didn't have anything. And I was so ambitious because I took that anorexic obsession, and I put it toward elderly people, people that have lived longer than me, people that needed help, because I knew what it was like. You can spot out vulnerability in a second. And I've been taken advantage of by so many vultures, it'll never happen again. I don't know if I'll ever be able to rebuild the trust within my family that I want to from mistakes that I've made. But then when I think about it, were they all my mistakes as a family, or does everybody in the family take part in something? So Eugenie, I don't know what to say to you. I hope you hear this. I told you about myself because we all go through things. We're not in Gaza, we're not in Ukraine, we weren't in Afghanistan, and whoever has been. What do you say to somebody who's put their life on the line for our liberties and our freedoms? And then you have people that take it away, like that doctor, Michael Corcola, Royal Victoria Hospital. I'll never forget it in my life. Neither will my knee or my body. You know, I love my cousin, and I sent a group text out the other day to spread the word about a charity that I want to start. And don't text me, he said. And I remember, like yesterday, we were in our backyard on Park Road, and I was lighting a lighter with my toes, and I was 23 then. You know, there was a line once in Georgina Rules with Lindsay Lohan, and the grandmother said, in time, family becomes as useless as friends. Well, I don't believe that. I refuse to believe that. And I know one day somebody out there might see this and might have the gonads to join me and talk about the stories and get it out there. Why can't we be a little bit more like Americans in terms of expressing our opinions? It's driving me crazy. Please subscribe. It's free. I will not disappoint. You know why? I'm not going to disappoint myself. And if I ever monetize on this channel, you already know I've got to keep a little bit to keep the channel going, but the rest is going to people and to changing this legislation so that when people are injured by a surgeon and it's a purposeful, obtuse decision he or she makes, it's different than an error. The doctor comes to you and says, I make a mistake. Accept it and don't sue them, for God's sakes. People make mistakes. It's not owning up to them that's the issue. Now, why should I be responsible now? You want the government to be paying for people that have been injured by a surgeon who kept his mouth shut? Or do you think, and we're also lacking doctors right now, so they're not going to get rid of them. But do you think he could have helped me with my physiotherapy? It's been 6 years and I've only been able to work the last year. And it happened when I was 46. I wanted to have a baby. I wanted a family of my own. So I stopped driving my other family that I hardly know, crazy because I was just so isolated. And then COVID hit and I'm not a freaking victim. Paula M., I hope you see this. And TNT and the Royal Grift and Denise. And To Die For podcast and Andrew Gold and Sean Atwood. And I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Because those podcasts and those subscriptions and your content kept me going. And it was free. And I view, like, comment. Always to these people. That's my rant. Make sense of it what you will. And I give up asking about leaving comments and liking and subscribing. You know what? People do what they're going to do. And I'm not going to try to do a sales thing. I can't be bothered. The truth is the truth. You believe in it or you don't. You hit it or you don't. That's it. But I'm still a happy gal. And I wish you all a great day. I do. And keep care of yourselves. And I promise I'll keep doing the same. So I get stronger and stronger. And hopefully we'll grow stronger and stronger. 203 souls have joined and taken a chance with L&L Soul Sisters when I'm facing this way. And then there's the LIISA L&L Soul Sisters. The videos used to post onto the right channel. Now they're posting onto the littler channel. So if I had put them together properly, there would have been almost 300 souls. And I would have been like almost maybe 8 months away from 1,000 souls. And I'm showing all of the monetization. And I'm going to show you via video where it's going and what I'm doing. Because this is L&L Soul Sisters. Because I was Elisa, then I was Elisha. And then I really did find God. And it's not a he or a she. I don't know. It's an energy. And I felt it once bolt through me, and I never felt it again. And that's where you have to go on faith. Because, as Annalise Michael said in the book that I'm desperately trying to read, but I really want Cheery Denise to read it, are we alone out there, or aren't we? Is there a God, a heaven, a hell? All that we've been taught? Either answer would be unbelievable. And that's the line that Laura Linney said to the court in her closing argument in The Exorcism of Emily Rose. And hopefully I'll be able to get back on track with order. And I realize with YouTube, you have to stay structured, consistent with the same theme. So my theme is join the clans. There's more of us poor people than wealthy people. We need to stick together. I'm going to be putting something up on my L&L Soul Sisters community page at Lisa Rajanko 7331. Not the channel you're actually seeing this video on, but I'm attaching this video to the community channel. So really all the videos are on the L&L Soul Sisters with the 203 souls. Does that make sense? Okay. I think that's enough now, Lasha. This is 29 minutes. Happy TGIF. Is it Friday the 16th? I think so. Bye. Turn it off. Why won't it turn off?